This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Fiscally responsible, financial geniuses, monetary magicians. These are things people say about drivers who switch their car insurance to Progressive and save hundreds. Visit progressive.com to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary, not available in all states or situations.
Look around. You can find cars like these on AutoTrader, like that car riding your tail. Or if you're tailgating right now, all those cars doubling as kitchens and living rooms are on AutoTrader too. Are you working out and listening to this ad at the same time? Well, multitasking pro, cars like the ones in the gym parking lot are for sale on AutoTrader. New cars, used cars, electric cars, maybe even flying cars. Okay, no flying cars, but as soon as they get invented, they'll be on AutoTrader. Just you wait. AutoTrader.
Choosing a bottled Starbucks Frappuccino drink that's all flavor and just 100 calories? Easy. Choosing between creamy vanilla, double chocolate, and sea salt caramel flavors? A little harder. Try the delicious new Starbucks Frappuccino light drinks. Look for them wherever you buy groceries. Start with Starbucks coffee.
This is so me. Of course this is what happened to me, because this is what happens to me. I'm so lucky. I get opportunities. I create what at least I think is good art. Like, who knows? And then something fucked up happens.
Hello, and welcome to a new episode of Live Through That. I'm your host, Mike Hipple, and on this podcast, we'll dig a little deeper into a pivotal moment into the lives of some of my favorite artists from the 80s and 90s. Today's guest is the phenomenal Jen Trynin. She's an absolute treasure, and why she wasn't side by side on the charts with Alanis Morrisette, I'll never know. It truly is a crime that she was not a huge star back in the 90s. The record companies thought she would be huge and fought over who would sign her and release her first record. That record, Cockamamie, was filled with great songs like Better Than Nothing and Happier. These songs are still in regular rotation on my playlist and should be on yours too. Sadly, they did not make the impression on the charts they should have, and her second record, Gunshy Trigger Happy, didn't do as well on the charts either. Both are huge critical favorites though, and if you've heard them, you love them too. It's definitely worth searching out as soon as you're done listening to this episode. In addition to all of this, she also wrote one of the best musician memoirs out there, Everything I'm Cracked Up to Be, which you can still find out there, and again, is really worth looking for. I don't say this lightly, it's as good as Patti Smith's Just Kids. I should stop rhapsodizing so much about Jen, but one of the reasons I do this podcast is to shine a light on some of my favorite artists. A lot of our guests have been fairly well known, and some of them, like Jen, should have been much bigger because they have so much incredible talent. Sometimes, and especially with an artist like Jen, it just doesn't make any sense why neither the records nor her book gained a lot of traction. That's why I'm so excited to have her on the show, and I really want you to check out her catalog because it is just so amazing. And with that, let's let Jen do the talking.
You know, it's interesting because, like, at least for me, getting so old, and I'm grateful to still be alive and have a decent life, I don't care anymore about most things. I care about different things than I used to care about. You know, when I got into music in the way that anybody thinks I did, I started writing music when I was like 11 or 12 years old. So that was different. You know, creating is completely other than trying to get a record deal, trying to get a book deal, doing things in public for a reason or something. At least for me, it's super different. And when I decided, I don't know, I'm going to get a record deal, that looks, because I had a job. This is probably in my book, but I don't know because I haven't read it in so long. I don't remember what ended up in there, to be honest. But after going to college, I went to Oberlin in Ohio back when it wasn't cool at all. At least I didn't think it was cool. And I studied creative writing and electronic music. And I tried to get into the conservatory every year for composition. And they actually openly laughed at me. Openly, they would just be like, "Oh, here's Jen again. Okay, go ahead." And I would play a song or whatever. And they're like, "Why do you keep doing this?" And I'm like, "Why do you keep not just letting me into the program?" So they just wouldn't. And so whatever. So I did a lot of writing. I did a lot of electronic music there. Then I had a job in Chicago at a theater as a dramaturgist, which is like a script doctor for plays, which I was very excited about. I think it was called the Organic Theater, that I think now still exists today. It closed for 6 months. They lost their funding. I was like, I didn't know where I was going to stay anyway. And I ended up in Boston because I had a lot of friends here. And I was so sick of writing workshops. I had to take a break from writing because I was just like, enough. I'm like, I don't want to hear about your dead dog again. Like, I get it. You're in pain and you're writing about your dog, but I don't want to hear about it again. And I was getting sick of my own self. I was just like, I don't want to hear about my own shit either. So I started playing music around here, and just literally one thing led to another. And I got like sucked into the entire thing. And I had made a couple of records on my own because I wanted to, because it was fun. I made records in high school. I had a 4-track. Like, I did the whole thing, but I didn't do it in the way that seemed like everybody else that I met in Boston was all like, everyone was so into it. And like, they were all wearing like the same jacket, and like, we're doing it. Everybody was so cliquey. And I was like, I'm from New Jersey. I'm not a joiner. I'm like, I don't know. Yeah, I made 4 tracks. Oh, you made 4 tracks? Oh, that's so cool. And I'm like, is it? Like, I just didn't get anything that they were talking about. But then, I don't know, I just got sucked up into it. And then it went too well, under be careful what you wish for. By the time I got signed to Warner Brothers in that enormous way, I really didn't know what I was doing. And I was trying to be what they wanted me to be. And for me, once I got onto like the real, the A League, I was like, oh shit. Like, I'm in the Warner Brothers like offices that first year, and the lead guy from, I'm so bad at this. I don't know, all these famous people, I can't even remember who they were, would like, come into the office, and I'd be like, I just look at them, just the way they walked in, like someone like, I don't think it was Prince, but let's say it was Prince, because I love Prince, and he was I love his music. Those people are different. They just walk into a room, and I felt like being like, okay, Warner Brothers, it was great knowing you. I'm never going to be able to attain that. Stop telling me I can. It's been nice knowing you, because I could feel it. I knew it in my heart. I was like, I am fucked. I will never be able to do that. Now in my life, I'm way more kind of like, I'm going to walk into this room and I don't care. Which is, I do what I do. I'm writing more music. I'm working on a book. Like, I do Earful. Like, I do these different things, and I am who I am. Am I not pretty enough? Fuck off. Am I too old? Fuck you. I'm still alive. I'm just like, I just don't care anymore. And back then it was like, if I thought they had, I was like, oh, this is not I shouldn't have worn this to here for this event. I would get all tangled up in my head, because I didn't really know what I was doing. It wasn't really genuine. The music was genuine, but nothing else I was doing back then was genuine. So the second I could just get paid to go away, I was like, bye-bye. And I left. That's my story, really.
The story of her being wooed by the record companies and the aftermath of that is written about in the book I mentioned in the intro, Everything I'm Cracked Up to Be. There were some challenges along that road, too.
One of the additional fucked up things that happened for me, not that I'm any great writer, but when I got my book deal, it was with FSG, which is Farrar Straus Giroux, which is like a really great publisher. And I was signed by Rebecca Salatan, who is just very highly regarded, smart, wonderful, I adore her, person in the writing world. So that was my contract, and my agent at the time was who was very powerful, big guy, and he and I got along well. And he had, under the radar, I wasn't surprised, most other people were, a raving drug problem. And I had finished writing, my entire rough of the book, Everything I'm Cracked Up to Be. And he was sending it to all his connections in Hollywood. Like, I had all these great things going on, and was like, oh, every starlet is clamoring to play you in the movie. This is going to be so much fun. And I was like, wow, that would be so fun and weird and interesting. And I was all excited. Never heard from him again. He disappeared the next day for, I think it might have been 2 years. His entire company disbanded. His boyfriend, who's a famous like indie movie making guy, who's such a nice person, thought, he was dead. Everybody thought he was dead. It was like so crazy. And I was like, being small-minded, I was like, this is so me. Of course, this is what happened to me, because this is what happens to me. I'm so lucky. I get opportunities. I create what at least I think is good art. Like, who knows? And then something fucked up happens when I was signed. And again, this isn't because I'm so brilliant, so it should have gone so well. But I'm a little bit like, come on, guys. In the music business, I got signed to Warner Brothers. I was their big signing, and I was, Danny Goldberg, who was like Kurt Cobain's manager, and he was just like, he just really, really sweet talked to me, as lots of people were trying to do, and I was a real sucker for that because I'm kind of an idiot, like most people. If someone says you're great, you want to believe it. So and so everything's going so well, but then everything at Warner Brothers just falls apart, and Danny leaves, and the entire team who signed me, all of them fired. I was like, what? So that happened first, then the book thing. So I don't think I am God's gift to any type of art, but I think I'm at least as good as the bottom rung people. And why I've never been able to get any traction, I don't know. Mike, why don't you tell me?
Jen has been working on her next book, and an excerpt of that was published in the literary magazine Plowshares back in 2023. I'm curious where that project stands.
Hopefully in the next 4 months, I'll really actually will get to the end of the rough. It's still called Death is a Number, and it's more similar in tone to the conversation you and I were having before we started turning on the recorder to talk about music. It's ending up being a book about home. I think that's really what it's about for me. It's another, creative nonfiction memoir-y kind of story. It's way more psychedelic than my music book, because it's a completely different topic. In short, it's about, let's make it third person, a woman whose family breaks up in for her a very traumatic way when she's like 9, 10, 11, and her family falls apart. And then as she gets older and, doesn't really decide to have a family just starts happening for her. She becomes, very dedicated to, well, I've brought a child into the world, and my whole focus is I'm going to make sure that what happened to me doesn't happen to my child. I'm going to be a dedicated life partner to my husband, who is the father. And I don't really care what else happens. I'm going to make this work. I'm going to create this world for her. It was just the center of my life, and completely. I mean, I can't even tell you how much more than anything else ever had, because I was like, I'm not going to put this child through what I was put through by being the selfish person I really am, but I'm just not going to be that way. So I wasn't. But then my husband, life partner, father of this young girl, got a terminal cancer diagnosis at the same age that I was when my father first left us. And it was completely out of my control. And it kind of broke my brain and my heart for a long time. And he thankfully lived for a while, and then died in a really kind of horrible way. I can't remember who it was. It was a political, maybe it was Winston Churchill. I can't remember, the quote that says, something changes gradually, then suddenly. That's how his thing was. And just then carrying on and trying to be a good parent in this way that literally just broke my heart. It just broke my heart. So I wrote about it during his cancer times for 3.5 years, after that, and then when he died, writing, because that's how I react to things. And now it's more, I still have some more to write, but now I'm kind of putting it together in a way that I think might be meaningful or beautiful for somebody else. Specifically, it's really for my daughter. I had a short story that was published in a literary magazine called Plowshares, and she read that. That's the only thing she's ever read. And she's getting older now. So it will continue to change. She's also never read my first book, Everything I'm Cracked Up to Be. She hasn't read it. I asked her not to read it for a long time. And then at some point I said, if you want to, you can. She is her own person, and she wants to keep her own, I respect it, her own feelings about me, and she's not ready. And it's okay. It's okay. But anyway, but on the later side, so I'm right. It is a heavy book, but there are some really funny parts to it, which are surprising to me. And it's still really coming together. It's going to take a little while longer, but I'm finally at a place where some other things, terrible things kept happening around me in my life that I had to pay attention to for a number of years. All I'm asking for right now is for nothing to happen for about a year so I can finish this book before I die by some weird chance. And I'm writing, so there's music that goes along with it, which is not as far ahead as the book is. And I really want it to be not quite just pop music for the music that will go along with this. So I don't know. And it could end up being almost like a stage thing because I'm just have like ideas about, and if not now, Mike, when? I'm not going to do these things now. There is no later. It's now.
One of the other big things Jen is doing these days is a production called Earful. Their tagline is where authors feel cool and musicians feel smart. But I'll let Jen tell you more about that.
So Earful is this thing that I started with a bookstore guy here in Boston named Tim Huggins back in end of, like 99, 2000, 2001. It was around then. That's when I was transitioning from being just music. Because after I left music, I played guitar in a band I loved called Loveless. It wasn't my music. It was Dave Wanamaker's music. So I was still doing music sort of. But I was working on the book that eventually became Everything I'm Cracked Up to Be. But I had this good friend named Tim Huggins, and he had a really cool independent bookstore called Newtonville Books. And I would go there to hear his readings and to meet writers. And I met like Tom Perrotta before he was Tom Perrotta, and Atul Gawande, a science writer before he was like super famous, and a Southern writer named Brad Watson, Laura Zigman, who's one of my best friends now, through Tim. But I'd go to these readings and I was like, I don't know, I didn't love them. I was a little bit antsy and bored because it's just my personality. And then Tim, the bookstore guy, would come to my rock shows when I was playing in Loveless. And he's like a Southern guy. He was like, this is great. This is fantastic. Why are my readings so quiet? And so we thought, hey, why don't we host something that has authors and musical acts, in some bar or something? And just because like there were so many writers who were such big music fans, and so many of my music friends, like Bill Janovitz, who's an old friend from that time in Buffalo Tom, huge reader. And so we just kind of cross-pollinated and started doing these shows, which back then were super loose and fun and drunk. We were younger and had more time. And then we did it for a number of years, and then we stopped doing it. But then we just started doing it again a few years ago, and it's become like a little bit of a thing, at least in Boston. And so what it is now is we host 2 authors and 2 musical acts in about 2 hours at a restaurant or pub. Food and drink is always available, and socializing is a must. So it's like a thing, and it's been doing well. I love it. I host it with various other people. And so it's called Earful. If this ends up on the podcast, Earful with 2 L's.org. It's really fun most of the time. It's a lot of work, but it's fun. And in my older age, I really do. And I was not like this when I was younger, but I really find it meaningful to bring people together in that way that people. It's almost the opposite of the whole shoegazy indie music exclusion thing. I'm like, oh, just get over yourself. I always hated all of that. This is like, no, art is really for everyone. Just come, you'll have fun. You meet new people. This is about you. And so that's what we talk about when, as we host, it's about, we can't do this without you. Otherwise we're just like playing in our, or drinking beer by ourselves in our basement. Please come so we can share and have the good feeling instead of the lonely feeling. And that's what Earful is to me. And that's why I love it. I've really grown to love it so much. And it's so much a part of my life that, so like, some people go to church. This is a little like that to me.
Jen is still doing music, this time with a band called The Cujo.
So I'm part of a band called, it's really just Cujo, but then we end up calling it The Cujo because there are other bands called Cujo, and I was like, so well, if we're ever doing so well because we're so popular that we have to change our name, we'll change our name. But when we started playing, it started with years ago with me and just one of my favorite people in the world named Matt Tahaney, Matt Dehaney, who works at Q Division, which is a great recording studio here in Boston that my late husband, Mike Deneen, and John Lupfer started back in, I think, 1986, 87, 86, something like that, 85. And has gone through iterations and still exists today. And Matt Dehaney works there. He's a great bass player, great singer, great engineer, amazing music producer. And he and I have been friendly for a really long time. So he and I started kind of goofing around and doing music together over the last 10 years, basically. And some other people have come in and out a little bit. But we recorded 7 songs that we recorded, 4 with Mike Deneen and then 3 with Sean Slade, who was another amazing, incredible producer from around here, who's worked with all kinds of influential people who were very famous. He was nice enough to work with us. And so he did 3 songs, and the pandemic hit right when we had finished, literally 5 weeks later. So I got a little distracted, fearing I was going to die and leave my only child alone in the world. So fuck music, who cares? So I didn't think about music then for a really long time. But now I miss music. So we're going to put the record out, whatever that means.
To get a taste of what Cujo, or the Cujo, sound like, here's one of their songs, I Don't Even Want You. The whole record is available on Bandcamp, and there's a link in the show notes so that you can find that. I want to give a huge thank you to Jen for talking with me. We've been playing tag for some while to get this arranged, and I'm so glad we did. And again, I really encourage everyone out there to seek out her records and books. They're just so good, and she is seriously so talented. I'll have links in the show notes to Jen's site and information as to where to find her music. And as always, a quick reminder that you can buy my book on 80s musicians and where they are today, 80s Redux, and its sequel, Live Through That, on 90s Artist, wherever you buy your books. And if you like this show, please leave a review where you're listening. It always helps others find us. And of course, subscribe so that you won't miss an episode. Thanks for listening.